Hey, welcome back everyone. So in today's video, I'm going to show you how to draw a head facing up and away. So let's jump into it. Keep in mind that I do have a course on drawing heads. It's very in-depth. I'll link in the description box below, and I get into all sorts of the variables that go into drawing heads confidently from every angle and different character types, all that fun stuff. So check it out if you're interested. So with this one, we could start with the the ball method, like you get from the Andrew Loomis method, right? As I always tell people, you should practice drawing this little ball right here from every conceivable angle. Seems pretty simple, but you start to realize the subtleties of it that you get with this. This side right here is sliced off. You don't see that as well right here. I always get people too that ask, like, how big should that oval be? And I'll say that personally, it maneuvers for me. Like, I would say roughly maybe 3/4 or maybe it's like 5/8 or something like that of the size of the sphere. But I maneuver it because I like to draw different head shapes, and I find that one of the quickest ways to do that is if I do a smaller slice on the sides, smaller oval, I get a rounder start to the head. If I take that same oval, which that's not the same size, and I make, or circle, I'm sorry, and then I make the oval much larger, well, then I start to get a very narrow head. Okay, so to me, it helps to direct the proportional changes that I like to see. Obviously, most skulls are relatively the same, but character types vary greatly, especially as you're talking like more animated styles and stuff like that. So that being said, I just wanted to address that because, again, it's one of those repetitive kind of questions that I get. So the tricky thing with this part is that when you're trying to find your 1/3, is that you have to shore them up a bit or make the top one a little more shallow and then elongate it at the bottom. And so that, coupled with the idea that if you open the mouth, this line right here, I like to start doing something like this. Okay, so just keep that in mind, that if you're going to do an open mouth pose, which I am, I like to bring that 1/3 back. I like to already start to think about the chin going back here. I usually put like an oval for the chin, sort of as a placeholder. Put an oval back here for the ear, kind of tilt that. And then as we work down from the chin, the jawline I should say, down to the chin, we got to figure out the angle right about there. Now, one of the things that coincides with figuring out even where the jawline is that when we have the mouth across, we'll say this area, and we're gonna open it, but it roughly coincides, if you were to wrap it around, to where the jawline angles. So now with an open pose, it's a little more difficult. But let me go back, because what I want to first establish here, so I almost feel like my center 1/3. So just so you can visually see where I'm estimating my 1/3 to be, there about like that. I did add some extra area to the bottom 1/3 for two reasons. Again, that feeling of perspective, and then also the fact that the mouth is going to be open. Likewise, I might even raise up the nose a bit. So again, I use another oval. You can draw out the full kind of triangulated areas, so you can draw that keystone shape that Andrew Loomis uses in the center of the brow line. You can draw a very like robotic version of the nose, very designed geometric version. All right, and you can really build that out if you need to. A lot of times I will just put in an oval. I might find that keystone shape, and then I kind of connect them with a curvature. Depends on the style of nose I'm going for. And then I'll place the nostrils higher than the lower drop down. I can't remember what that's called right there. But rounded nostrils, and then I just build it out with ovals. But I think that takes a bit of practice, so just keep that in mind, that that's something over time that you'll probably skip some steps and get into. But if you're not feeling up to that, you can just do these angles like this, kind of race some of this back. But I do like putting the oval at the tip because it helps me to think more spherically about the bulbous part of the nose. And so this becomes a great placeholder as well, I think. And also keep in mind that one of the hardest things for people to get right, I think, is how much the eyes really get hidden back here. So what I like to do here is draw in these circles for the eyeballs, and I think it really helps to play around with how much you can hide that one back here. And when you study your photos, that you really look at how much the eye gets hidden by the nose, especially in a upward tilted angle like this. So just try to observe that. But then, put the cheekbone about here, drop it back. And I might need to pull the chin back more. I don't know yet. It's I look at all these things like kind of floating shapes, I guess, a little bit, because there's times I'm thinking I'm heading entirely in the right direction, and then I place something and it exposes problems, and then I'm like, oh, where did I go wrong? Because I thought I was on the right track, right? It's something that we can all tend to do. We just think we're moving in the right direction, so we can actually move past an error by 3, 4, or 5 steps, and then we feel kind of lost in the process. So it's good to think of them as floating shapes, varying units of measurement. There's lots of variety to the face, lots of proportional differences. So it's better than thinking in terms of right and wrong, basically. Okay, so I want to keep the center line, but I'm going to thin it up a bit. So I want to start getting the mouth going. Now, what I usually do for the mouth is I just draw like a bit of a lampshade, I guess, for this kind of perspective. But I have to keep that center line in mind. It's going to be an open, kind of a fearful mouth pose. Well, to me, that's kind of like it almost looks like a lampshade. So just to show you what I'm talking about, like if you were to draw a lamp, right? That's my lamp right there. So I just think of that kind of shape, basically, where if you pull down on those muscles on the bottom lip, sometimes the center of the bottom lip will protrude up a bit. I'm gonna get something like that. But I think the trickiest part about something like this, or this particular kind of angle of the face, is as soon as you move past the center line, you have to really condense down that other side. It's the same idea of how that eye gets hidden, that we have to it's forced perspective. We have to imagine that area is a lot more shallow than what you see over here. So again, a common problem is you'll see somebody draw in perspective, and they'll forego the sense of perspective, and they'll do something like this. So even though they got a little bit of the angle in place like this, it doesn't work because there's so much distance over past the center line to the other side. And so you have to instead think of it like, once you move past that center line, it'd probably be a lot more like maybe like this. And it's not exact measurements. We're having to do a little bit of guesstimation here, but it's something you start to get better and better with. And then after that, the next part is, I guess I could have left that in place. So you get better at moving past that center line and shoring up, or shortening the amount of information, right, or the distance that amount of information covers, right? But then what you do is you start getting better at saying, how would the overlap occur there? You have to imagine that that's different as well. So sometimes you'll do hints of the ridge kind of going in front of the other shape. It's kind of hard to explain on this one, but let's see if I can find an example. I'll tell you what, just a cartooning method that you see basically is this. I'll simplify it. So you'd see the lip go maybe like that, and this one go like this. And it's not that it does that specifically, but what happens is that it now looks more dimensional. Now you place the other side of the ridge of the mouth over here, but you don't do that same thing over here. You know what I mean? So it gives you that kind of reinforced feeling that one side is different than the other, which at more extreme angles it will be. And then you also reinforce that with the teeth. So you're on this side, you see the teeth more widened, but then over here, you tighten up the lines and then quickly, make it to where you can't see the rest of the teeth. And all of that starts to couple together to make it look and feel more, well thought out, more dimensional. It just makes a little bit more sense. So hopefully that, that shows you there. Should just grab that, paste that up there. Now I got to draw it again. I'll use it for reference though. But that's, I don't know. To me, that's some of the hardest parts to get wrong about drawing these angled shots. Is like, what would this look like in that perspective? But this is where reference is a great thing. It's just we don't always draw from reference, right? We're not always immediately in tune with the reference, but it's a good idea, especially if you don't have any idea of what these shapes look like. That's when you know to pull reference. I always feel kind of frustrated when I don't think to start with the reference on something I know I don't know how to draw, but I like to try to test my ability over and over until I finally figure things out. And sometimes we do. Sometimes we do figure the things out. And those are great days. But other times we're like, oh, I still can't get it. What is the problem? Well, that's when we need reference. And just keep in mind, like I think it's Mark Silvestri, or one of those art. He's one that I heard about talking about a long time ago about leaving a mirror by the art table, and that's great for comic, great for any type of drawing you do, because if you can learn to look at your own face and then just grab parts of it, like say this expression, but then make an entirely new face, that's a awesome skill set to have, right? Something that you should definitely try to cultivate, because then you're not so hindered by certain aspects and constantly. I mean, good luck finding reference for this exact pose quickly, and not getting bogged down by just all sorts of other images. Like I have a problem too, where it's like FOMO, fear of missing out. So then I'll pull up images and look for this one, and all of a sudden I see a really killer image for something else, and I'm like, shiny object syndrome. I'm like, oh, I gotta have that one because I might need that for that shot. And then all of a sudden I'm stashing images in my my image folder, which I don't access often enough to really be spending that kind of time anyways. But there it is. If I ever need it, it's there, safe and sound. But yeah, so be careful of the FOMO syndrome. All right, and so same thing, and I'll once I add the little lines and the teeth, it'll look a little better. I'll bring the tongue up so it looks a little bit more like a yelp for help or something like that. Maybe he's yodeling. Ever done that? I've never yodeled. Not, I've yodeled, but not on top of a mountain, which I think is where you're supposed to yodel. I've yodeled in inopportune areas, like not the most. Yeah. Anyways, all right. I digress. But all right. So there we go. There's the mouth, and and the thing I like about the eyes as circles, as placeholders, is that as soon as you start to draw this part now, you avoid another common problem. So a common problem with eyes from an angle like this is to just draw them like pretty much if you were to just edge around the eye as a flat shape. Now stylistically, cartooning wise, this does work. A lot of people can do this really well. You put the right kind of wrinkles around it and you can make it work, right? But if you want it to look more dimensional, you really want to get that eye shape in there pretty quickly. And so what it does, it helps you to think about the eyelids kind of wrapping around this underlying form, which is really what all of these shapes should be doing, right? Like all the anatomy of the face should have this feeling that you understand the underlying structure and that you're wrapping the skin and the volumes and the forms over underlying structures, and it takes time to get used to. But anyways, placing these circles right there does it rather quickly mentally, I think. And then what you can do is you could shadow right in there, and you want that little bit of feeling that you're shadowing the corners of the skin meeting or wrapping around a sphere. And if you do that, generally it looks a little bit better. It doesn't look so flat like the ones I did to the right there. So it helps reinforce that shape. And just keep in mind too with eyes, I think one of the more simple things to be aware of if you're drawing female eyes, really raise up that back eyelid meeting point. There should be a bit of taper to any eye, where the tear duct is lower, the back eyelashes are higher, or back meeting point, and that, you know, that taper that you get there, right? And again, that higher point and that more spherical point on the inside. And I think that if you get that little bit of an angle like this right there, then it, you know, sort of works out better. Sort of has a nicer look from the start, and then obviously you get in there and do all your fancy smanchy eyelashes and play around with it and try to come up with neat patterns for that. I think that's kind of fun in itself, in and of itself. Yeah, see, and I feel like this point here should have still been higher. So I bring that up even higher. Okay, so now I'm over there trying to fix that eye. Okay, so with this, then I would say, okay, where's the eye placement? Obviously, we drop the eyes low. They're looking down at something scary. You know, it's up like this. It's, you know, it's something coming right at them, and they're looking up at it. You know, so obviously you got that, and then the other thing is just to really draw the irises where you get some of that white of the eye in there. And so, you know, if it's straight on, it's more like that. But you have to kind of purposely shrink the irises a little bit. You know, in some styles, like I think it's just important to get the white of the eyes in there for that fearful look. I probably could have widened the eyes more than I did, honestly, for that kind of look. So what I'll do, go back on the fondues here, like I should. And let's go ahead and drop it down like this. Because now I can get plenty of that white on the eye. Or above the eye. So something like that. Maybe a glare on the top part. Okay, so let's work on the nose a little bit, and let me tighten up a little bit more for you. Okay, so the bottom part of the nose drops down a little further. The nostrils can be ovals or triangles, whatever helps you to kind of work into that area and get a sense of, you know, direction side to side. Like, make sure to hide the one nostril, obviously, on this side. It's going to get covered up by the nose dropping down, obviously. So the wings of the nostrils, something like that. And that's a bit messy, so let me clean that up for you. Okay, and I'm not going to draw organically as much yet, but I'm going to, you know, slowly build into that. I think the hardest part here is knowing how much of that other nostril to cover up. You know, the more you bring the nose away from the face, the more it feels like from an angle like this, it's just going to cover that up. Again, this part's lower. I also like to draw a little bit of the plane change under the nose here as I go. And the bridge of it feels too wide up here, so I'll bring that in as I go here. Okay, so now pretty much got the bulk of the heavy lifting done. And so from the neck, I tend to see like a little angle right here. Something like this. Got that thick muscle of the neck that comes down like this. Just remember the neck is really a lot of V's and triangles. And you see that in a lot of the anatomy books. They break it down that way. Okay, the hairline, we'll bring that over here, round it over this way. And we could also bring up the eyebrows a bit like this and do a couple wrinkles in the forehead to reinforce this expression. It also looks like a little bit more of a stressed expression, so a lot of times I will draw more wrinkles around the eyes, even the nose. Definitely on the lower lip, because it's almost like he's pulling down right here with the lower lip, so I would draw more stress and wrinkle lines at the bottom. So all of that to me helps the expression a bit. The hair, I'm just going to do something quick, just because focuses on the character's face and the expression, not so much the drawing of the hair. Which, I mean, I guess you could make the hair really messy. It's like adds to the stress, right? Bad hair day. Okay, so there we go. So now what I can do is just get in here and think about cleaning it up. So again, that's a lot of the, hopefully you got, the idea of structure based, now you start thinking more about the muscles. So like in the masseter, the jaw muscle, it points up towards this part of the eye. There's like a bit of a relationship there. But, obviously I have the cheekbone, the zygomatic, which comes back like this. So you want to get some of that in there. And the rest is a lot of little wrinkles. If I kept overly focusing on the bone structure, I could make this person look very maybe tough or malnourished. I don't know, but I don't want to do that too much. I want some of that in there, but I always think of it like this. Like I think of the zygomatic bone like this, and there being this cheekbone, right, and all this stuff underneath. But I don't want to draw it like that. It would look silly. So I just grab pockets of the area and I blend that off and I fade that off. And then I lean into wrinkles to help, tie in those shapes and volumes together, but in a way where it's not so interconnected. Like even right here, you can see the face looks way too segmented. Well, I have to soften that up at parts, right? So this has been a long enough video. Hopefully I didn't bore you with it. I'll go ahead and time lapse and clean it up. But let me know what you think. And like I said, if you want to take the full course, there's a link in the description box below. I always appreciate the support. Allows me to bring free content to you here on YouTube. Thanks so much for watching. Good luck with your art, and bye for now.